Welcome to a deep dive. We've got some really fascinating source material you brought us today, and yeah, we're excited to unpack it.
Me too. This stuff, it really gets under your skin in a
Oh,
good way. It's
yeah,
powerful.
absolutely. So today we're zeroing in on something specific. It's a review from the book podcaster, talking about chapter 11 of The Emperor of Gladness.
And the key thing is we also have parts of the chapter itself, so we can really see what the reviewer means.
Exactly. And that review, it sets things up immediately, doesn't it? Calls the chapter a quiet landslide.
Yeah, and grief in disguise, memory as shelter. I mean, those phrases,
Mhm.
they really pull you in.
They do, and soft and devastating. It tells you right away this isn't going to be simple. It's described as raw poetic fiction.
Right, it's asking us to look closer, at the lines between what's real, what's remembered, maybe what's constructed to cope.
Mhm. So that's our mission today. Use these sources, get inside this chapter, figure out how it creates that feeling, that soft and devastating quality the review mentions. How does it achieve that quiet landslide?
And how it uses like the setting and the dialogue to really pull us into Grazina's internal world. It's quite something.
Okay, let's dive in then. Chapter 11 opens at night under a dining room table. That's our starting point.
Straight away, yeah. And we meet Grazina and Hai.
And we immediately get a sense of Grazina's state, right? The sources say her medication is waning.
Uh-huh. Her mind's starting to sway earlier than usual. So right off the bat, we know her perception is, well, shifting.
Yeah, shifting is a good word. Because that ordinary table, it becomes trenches.
And the moonlight through the curtains, suddenly it's light coming through a canopy of trees.
She's actively transforming her surroundings, taking everyday things and weaving them into this wartime delusion.
And using objects to make it feel real for her. Like there's a coupon catalog page she uses for cover.
Right, and that amber stone her grandmother gave her.
Yeah, the special stone from the spirits in the forest. It's her protection against the dark in this fantasy. These details aren't random. They anchor her reality.
And she pulls High right in. He's Sergeant Pepper. There are imagined German soldiers nearby the crowds.
It's completely immersive for her, but what's really interesting is Hai's response.
He doesn't just shut her down.
No, not at all. He plays along, points out where the enemy is. That's German, all right, about 50 yards out.
He's participating on the surface.
But inside, the sources show us he's thinking about her condition, hoping the doctor might up her dose. He's walking this incredibly fine line.
Trying to care for her without getting totally lost in it himself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That balance is tough, and you see it in that bit about his age.
Oh, yeah. She asks how old he is. He says 20.
And she links it back to her perceived age, thinking she's 17. Only 3 years ahead of me then. It just shows how deep that distortion goes for her.
And High's reply is so telling. I'm a fast learner.
Right. It works in the context of being a young sergeant, but it also speaks volumes about him, about needing to adapt constantly to her reality. It's subtle, but powerful.
Okay, so they don't stay under the table. High suggests moving, finding somewhere to rest. He points to the pantry.
Calls it some kind of shed.
And boom! Grazina immediately translates that. It's a hunter's cabin.
Yep. Instantly filtered through that wartime lens. She's even thinking about whether it's hunting season, the delusion adapts to the new setting.
And this pantry space,
Mm,
this is where the blend of reality and delusion gets really intense.
for sure. Like the airplane sound.
Yeah, a real plane from Bradley International Airport nearby. But for Grazina.
It's a B-52, and she asks, will they bomb? It's such a direct collision of the real world and her internal one.
And the sound of the river they heard earlier. Now it's wind through field grasses outside the cabin.
And you have these ordinary pantry things, cans of corn, paper towels. Hai even uses one to dab her face.
Right next to her thoughts about sleeping enemy soldiers is this constant, unsettling mix.
But you also get these little flickers of, well, not quite lucidity, but connection to the present physical world. Dabbing her face with a paper towel.
And when High turns on a light bulb, a bare bulb,
She sees it as a light from a farmhouse on that hill and immediately worries, are they enemies?
and High's response is so gentle, I think they're just people. Just trying to offer another possibility, without breaking the spell completely.
It really highlights the challenge for him. How do you respond? His way seems to be this quiet presence, gentle redirection, maybe.
And then things get even more complicated. She starts talking about her mother, a border agent.
Right, seeing the pantry as some kind of open public space.
And the source notes High gets nervous. He thinks he can handle two timelines. The war, the present.
But not a third.
Yeah.
Yeah. It just shows the sheer mental load on him, trying to navigate all these fragments of her reality.
And that moment with the cellophane, the penny packet.
Oh, yeah, the crinkling sound terrifies her. She flings it away like it's alive or something. Shows how raw her nerves are, how everyday things become threats.
It's not just seeing things differently, it's hearing and feeling things differently, too.
Definitely. And through all this, Hai keeps coming back to that question, almost like a ritual.
Who was the president?
And eventually, after some confusion, she says, Mama, at first.
Yeah. But later she gets it. Obama, which confirms the time, December 2009.
It's like an anchor for both of them and for us reading it. A brief, solid moment of shared reality before things drift again. It shows that clarity is still in there, somewhere.
Okay, so it's in this pantry, this intense space, that the focus shifts. This is where the memory is shelter idea really comes alive.
Yeah, behind a big bag of flour, they find something.
A rusty round tin box, like for Danish butter cookies, the source says.
Just an ordinary object, but what's inside? That's the key.
They pull out this folded beige cloth,
Mm-hmm.
and it folds and unfolds.
Into a king-size sheet, covered in drawings.
Childhood drawings, yeah.
Yeah.
Colored in, but faded now, the sketching frayed. You can picture it.
And Grazina starts telling a story. She says the sheet belonged to her best friend, Marta, the owl girl.
Describes her as too fat to fly, but closer to me than my own name.
Mm-hmm. And she points out drawings. Marta's house, chickens, a car, a lake. It sounds like this really cherished memory.
But then comes that twist, the aha moment the review hinted at. Hai asks if her daughter drew them.
And Grazina says no, she drew them when she was 17.
To cope with nightmares.
That's the reveal. Marta isn't someone else. Marta is, or was, Grazina. A version of herself she created back then, likely to process something awful.
The sheet, the drawings, they're physical proof of that coping strategy.
Yeah.
Creating this shelter for herself through Marta. It also explains why she felt 17 earlier.
Exactly. And she even slips back for a second, refers to herself as 17 again.
Until Hai gently reminds her she's 82.
It shows how potent that past identity still is for her. It's not just a memory. It's almost a place she can go back to.
She really focuses on the drawing of the lake, tells this whole story about Marta learning to swim there with a boy named Philip.
The miner's son. She gives these vivid details. He was older, wide shoulders. His hands underwater were like two fish.
Talks about waiting till August to swim in Lithuania, then contrasts it with being in Germany now, where it's warmer. That mix again.
And the detail about the real fish biting Marta, but her not wanting to upset Philip, it paints this picture of innocence, maybe a first crush, really tender.
But then the story darkens, significantly.
Yeah. She talks about their last swim, just before Philip was meant to leave for the Lithuanian Liberty Army.
And he drowns.
It's sudden and tragic, and the way she describes finding him, white like a summer rose, very still and very quiet beside Marta, smiling at the sky.
And that line, a dead soldier who never killed anyone.
So powerful. It connects his personal story right back to that backdrop of war and loss that haunts her. A life cut short.
She remembers running home, the funeral, the priest calling Philip brave, the old miner crying.
And Marta just sitting there, silent, in the third row.
This is clearly the grief in disguise the review talked about.
Okay.
This isn't just a sad story. It feels like the root of something deep and unresolved for her. The reason Marta was created.
Absolutely. And her answers, when Hai asks what happened to Marta, first she just says nothing. Like that part of her vanished.
Then those philosophical lines. Some things belong to those who live them. And wondering if owls too fat to fly learned to swim instead.
It suggests this complex relationship with that past self, that trauma. And her final line about Marta.
She was just a girl from long ago. No one remembers her but me.
Oof. That captures the loneliness of it, doesn't it? Carrying this history, this alternate self that nobody else knows or can access. The memory is shelter, but it's also isolating.
It really lands that soft and devastating feeling. The drawings are soft, the story is devastating.
Perfectly put. And just as we're processing that, this chapter throws another curveball.
Right, back to the tin box. After the sheet is out, there's something else at the bottom.
An envelope.
And this shifts things again, from the deeply psychological to something very tangible.
Very real world. Inside that envelope.
Money. A thick stack of $100 bills. Over $4,000.
Wow. And according to Grazina, it's from Janos, her late husband, left for a journey.
So where the sheet was maybe a psychological inheritance, this is a literal financial one. With a purpose, apparently.
And Grazina has instructions for Hai. Right away.
Yeah, she tells him he needs to take the money, use it to get into London. because border agents would be suspicious of her having it.
It's such a strange mix, isn't it? The London journey sounds delusional, maybe. But the reasoning about border agents, that feels weirdly practical, almost shrewd, like some part of her understands how she might be perceived.
And the envelope itself causes more confusion. She first thinks it's a letter from her daughter, Lena.
Recognizes her own name printed on an old bank statement envelope the cash is in. So, daughter, money, journey, all tangled up.
And you really feel for High here. The sources say he's lost track of the timelines again, and his mind immediately jumps.
To his own life, his own problems. Sony of Aunt Kim's bail, he thought of everything.
Suddenly, this unexpected cash isn't just Grazina's past, it's potentially High's future. His reality crashes into the scene.
And he makes a snap decision. He lies.
Tells her it's just his pay stubs, and hides the money in his waistband.
It's a morally gray moment for sure. Survival instinct kicking in, maybe. Opportunity knocking. It's complicated.
But Grazina, despite everything, she's insistent. Take it, it's my money, and I'll do with it as I like. She's clear on that.
And then she delivers that absolute zinger of a line. Completely lucid, it feels like.
In war, money becomes paper again.
Chills. Coming from her in that state, it hits hard. It tells you so much about what she must have lived through, what shaped her view of value survival.
That inheritance is suddenly loaded with so much more than just cash value. It's responsibility, history, survival. It connects High directly to her past now.
Yeah. And the chapter winds down as dawn starts to break, light coming under the door.
Grazina's resting on High's shoulder, kind of drifting off, but she has these last few moments of clarity, almost.
Confirms Obama is president again, that anchor point one last time.
And she says that beautiful thing about words. Words cast spells. That's why it's called spelling, la base.
It's so poetic, and maybe reflects on the power of her own stories, the spells her memories have cast on her, and then that whiff.
That she'd known High long ago. We would help each other, wouldn't we?
And he just quietly agrees. We would.
It seals that bond they've formed. In this strange, intense night, the pantry really did become this sort of cocoon for them.
A connection built right in the midst of the confusion, navigating it together.
And the very end focuses on High. Head between his knees, can't meet her eyes as she drifts off.
He hears her last words, and as the light comes in, he makes a decision.
Once and for all, the text says.
Yeah.
That he would survive.
And that decision is tied directly to the money. He feels it against his skin, feeling the richest he'd ever been.
Wow. So inheritance, this strange gift from Grazina, becomes his fuel for survival. It's not just money, it's agency. A bridge from that night to whatever comes next for him.
Yeah. It's an incredibly potent ending.
Phew. Okay, so this deep dive, it really took us places. From under a table into a pantry-turned bunker, unpacking a lifetime of trauma stored in a sheet.
Witnessing this unexpected handover of wealth and seeing this incredibly complex, really tender bond form between High and Grazina.
It absolutely lives up to that soft and devastating description from the review.
Definitely. It shows so clearly how memory isn't static, right? It's alive, it shapes the present, sometimes overwhelmingly, and it highlights the quiet heroism, maybe, the sheer emotional work involved in caregiving like High is doing.
Yeah, and how connection can happen even when realities don't fully align. It makes you think, doesn't it? About how we approach people whose reality seems fragile.
And about our own lives, too. What are the sheets, the objects, or stories from our past that we carry? Are they shelters? Are they burdens? Maybe both.
And taking Grazina's words, if words cast spells, what spells are our stories casting? The ones we tell ourselves, the ones we inherit. How do they shape our ability to move forward, to survive?
That's a really powerful question to sit with. How much power do those internal narratives hold over our reality?
A lot to think about. Thank you for joining us on this exploration today. We hope digging into this chapter gave you some food for thought.